I'll never forget the sound of my sister Rachel's heels clicking against the marble floor of Morrison Associates law firm. Each step echoed like a countdown to an explosion I knew was coming. She breezed past me in the waiting room without a glance, her Chanel suit and perfectly blown-out hair making me feel even smaller in my thrift store cardigan and practical flats. "I hope you're not planning to make this difficult, Stephanie," she hissed, barely moving her lips. "We both know Mom wanted someone responsible to handle her estate." I clutched my purse tighter, my 26-year-old hands trembling slightly. How did we get here? Two sisters, sitting in opposing chairs, about to battle over the woman who raised us both? But I'm getting ahead of myself. To understand how everything fell apart and how it all came together in the most unexpected way, I need to take you back to where it really began. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. 3 months earlier, I was exactly where I'd been for the past 4 years, hunched over my laptop in the corner of Riverside Community Center, surrounded by after-school chaos. Kids' laughter bounced off the walls as I tried to coordinate the weekly schedule for our youth programs. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. They'd been doing that for 2 years now, and the building manager kept promising to fix them next week. Miss Stephanie, Carlos took my basketball again." 7-year-old Mia tugged at my sleeve, her braids bouncing with indignation. I saved my document quickly, already standing to mediate what had to be the third sports equipment dispute of the afternoon. "All right, let's go sort this out. Carlos knows the sharing rules." This was my life. Youth program coordinator at a nonprofit in downtown Portland, Oregon. Salary? $34,000 a year. Benefits: watching kids who reminded me of myself, the ones from the wrong side of the tracks, the scholarship kids, the ones whose parents worked 3 jobs, find a safe place to just be children. My apartment was a studio in the Hawthorne district, small enough that my bed doubled as my couch, and my kitchen table was also my desk. The walls were covered in crayon drawings from the center kids, their colorful scribbles hiding the peeling paint underneath. Every night, I fell asleep to the sound of the Max train rumbling past, its rhythm as familiar as my own heartbeat. "You're still here?" My colleague, Marcus, poked his head into my office. A generous term for a converted supply closet. "It's almost 7, Steph. Even the kids went home." I glanced at my watch, startled. "I was just finishing the grant proposal for the summer program. The deadline's tomorrow." Marcus shook his head, but he was smiling. "You know, if this place ran on dedication instead of funding, we'd be living in a mansion." I laughed, saving my work. If only the city council accepted passion as currency. Walking to the bus stop, I passed the Powell's books, where I used to hide in the aisles as a teenager, reading books I couldn't afford to buy. The memory made me smile. I'd come a long way from that scared kid who lived in her older sister's shadow. Rachel. Even thinking her name made my shoulders tense. My phone buzzed. A text from Mum. "Dinner tomorrow? Haven't seen you in weeks, sweetheart." Guilt gnawed at me. Between work and volunteering extra hours to cover for our understaffed center, I'd been dodging family dinners. Not because I didn't love Mum, but because Rachel always found a way to make them uncomfortable. "Can't tomorrow, Mum. Big grant deadline. How about Thursday?" I typed back. Her response came quickly. "Thursday works. I miss my baby girl." The bus ride home took 45 minutes, long enough to watch the city transform from the cleaned-up tourist areas to the neighborhoods where people actually lived. I used the time to review the grant proposal on my phone, making mental notes of sections to strengthen. My studio apartment greeted me with its familiar cramped comfort. I microwaved leftover pasta, my signature dish considering my cooking skills topped out at boiling water, and settled onto my bed couch to continue working. Around midnight, I allowed myself to scroll through social media, a habit I knew I should break. Rachel's Instagram was a carefully curated highlight reel. Her corner office at Thompson & Gray investment firm, her penthouse apartment in the Pearl District, her weekend trips to wine country. Her latest post showed her shaking hands with a silver-haired man in an expensive suit. Caption, "Just closed another major deal. Fortune favors the bold. Hashtag investment banker, hashtag power moves, hashtag success." 3,000 likes, 200 comments praising her ambition. I closed the app, the familiar ache of inadequacy settling in my chest. We'd grown up in the same household, attended the same private high school. Mom had insisted on that, working double shifts as a nurse to afford it. But somewhere along the way, our paths had diverged dramatically. Rachel had gotten her MBA from Stanford, climbed the corporate ladder with ruthless efficiency, and built an empire of success that glittered from every angle. I'd gotten my degree in social work from Portland State, chosen a career in nonprofit work, and built a life that looked like failure to anyone measuring with Rachel's yardstick. The next morning started with a crisis. Our center's van, the one we used to transport kids to field trips, had finally given up its ghost in the parking lot. Marcus and I stood staring at it like mourners at a funeral. The mechanic says it'll cost more to fix than it's worth, he said, rubbing his temples. We've been patching it together for years. What about the transportation budget? We used that to fix the heating system last month, remember? I do remember. Every month was a choice between fixing something broken or buying something necessary. The eternal nonprofit shuffle. We'll figure it out, I said, mustering confidence I didn't feel. We always do. The day passed in a blur of activity. I taught an art class using supplies I'd bought with my own money, mediated 2 friendship conflicts, called 3 potential grant funders, and discovered our refrigerator was leaking again. By the time I got home, I was exhausted. Thursday's dinner with Mom loomed ahead, and I knew I needed to prepare myself mentally. Family dinners had become battlegrounds lately, with Rachel launching subtle attacks disguised as concern.
Thursday arrived with autumn rain typical of Portland. I took 2 buses to reach Mom's house in Laurelhurst, the neighborhood where she'd moved after Dad died 5 years ago. The small craftsman bungalow was warm and inviting, so different from the cramped apartment where we'd grown up in the Lentz neighborhood. Mom answered the door in her usual fashion, arms wide, smile genuine, her nurse's scrubs traded for comfortable jeans and a sweater. At 63, Linda Johnson still had the energy that had carried her through raising 2 daughters alone after my father's heart attack when I was 15. "There's my girl," she said, pulling me into a hug that smelled like lavender and home. "You're too thin. Are you eating?" "Mom, I'm fine," I laughed, following her inside. The dining table was set for 3, and my heart sank. Of course Rachel would be here. "Your sister's running late," Mom said, reading my expression. "Big meeting or something." We sat in the living room, catching up properly. Mom talked about her patients. She still worked part-time at the hospital, unable to fully retire despite her age. I told her about the kids at the center, carefully avoiding mentioning our constant budget crises. She worried enough. Rachel arrived 30 minutes late, her entrance as dramatic as always. Designer handbag, perfect makeup, and that air of importance that seemed to follow her everywhere. Sorry, she said, kissing Mom's cheek. "Client emergency, you know how it is." She nodded at me. "Stephanie." "Rachel." Dinner was Mom's pot roast, the same recipe she'd been making since we were kids. For a while, we fell into familiar patterns. Mom asking about our lives, us giving edited versions suitable for maternal consumption. Then Rachel, as she always did, went for the jugular, disguised as sisterly advice. "So, Stephanie, are you still at that little community center?" She cut her meat with precise movements. No offense, but don't you think it's time to consider a career with more growth potential? I have connections at several firms that need HR coordinators. The salary would be triple what you're making. I set down my fork carefully. I like my job, Rachel. Not everything is about the paycheck. Of course not, she agreed smoothly. But at some point, you need to think practically. You're 26, no savings, no retirement plan, living in that tiny apartment. What happens when you want to settle down, buy a house, have kids? Rachel, Mom's voice held a warning. I'm just concerned about my little sister, Mom. Someone needs to push her to reach her potential. My potential. As if working with at-risk youth, helping kids find hope and opportunity was somehow less than pushing money around for wealthy clients. Not everyone defines success by their bank balance, I said quietly. Rachel's laugh was light, dismissive. No, some people define it by their Pinterest boards and good intentions. But reality requires financial security, Stephanie. You can't survive on karma points and thank you cards from 7-year-olds. The evening deteriorated from there. We made it through dessert, Mom's apple pie, with forced civility, but the damage was done. Driving home in my 15-year-old Honda Civic, I tried to shake off the interaction, but Rachel's words echoed in my mind. Was I wasting my life? The question haunted me as I left Mom's house, the Portland rain matching my mood perfectly.
Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The phone call came on a Tuesday morning at 6:47 a.m. I was still in bed, my alarm set for 7, enjoying those precious 13 minutes of semi-conscious peace before another day of juggling impossible budgets and broken equipment. Miss Johnson? The voice was professional, female, unfamiliar. This is Dr. Patricia Martinez from Providence Portland Medical Center. I'm calling about your mother, Linda Johnson. My heart stopped. Actually, stopped. I sat bolt upright, suddenly wide awake, every nerve ending on high alert. What happened? Is she okay? Your mother collapsed at the hospital during her shift. She's stable now, but we need you to come in immediately. She's asking for you. I was dressed and out the door in 5 minutes. Didn't bother with coffee or breakfast, just grabbed my keys and ran. The early morning streets were quiet as I sped through red lights I probably shouldn't have, my mind racing faster than my car. Mom collapsed. Mom, who never got sick. Mom, who worked through fevers and headaches because the hospital was always understaffed. Mom, who'd raised 2 daughters on her own and never complained about being tired. The hospital parking lot was nearly empty. I ran through the sliding doors, my sneakers squeaking on the polished floor, following signs to the ICU. The nurse at the desk recognized me. I'd been here countless times visiting Mom during her breaks. Stephanie, she said gently, room 412. Dr. Martinez is with her now. I found Rachel already there, standing in the hallway outside Mom's room, phone pressed to her ear. She looked different somehow. Smaller. Vulnerable. Her makeup wasn't perfect. There were actual tears in her eyes. I have to go, she said into the phone. Family emergency. She hung up and looked at me. Steph. For once, there was no condescension in her voice, just fear. What happened? I demanded. Stroke, Rachel said, the word breaking slightly. They found her unconscious in the break room. Another nurse called 911. The world tilted. Stroke. The word echoed in my head, bringing memories of Dad, of how quickly we'd lost him. Dr. Martinez emerged from the room, a petite woman with kind eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. You must be Stephanie. Your mother's been asking for both of you. She's awake and alert, which is a very good sign. Can we see her? My voice sounded strange, distant. Of course, but I need to prepare you. She has some paralysis on her left side. We're running more tests, but the next 48 hours are critical. Rachel grabbed my hand. Actually grabbed it.
I couldn't remember the last time my sister had voluntarily touched me. Mom looked so small in that hospital bed, surrounded by machines that beeped and hummed. Her left arm lay motionless on the blanket, her face drooped slightly on one side, but her eyes, those fierce, loving eyes, were the same. "My girls," she whispered, her speech slurred but understandable. "Both my girls." I rushed to her right side, taking her hand carefully. Rachel stood on her left, tears streaming down her face openly now. "Mom, don't try to talk," I said, my own tears falling. "Just rest." "No." Mom squeezed my hand with surprising strength. "Need to tell you both something important." "Mom, it can wait." "Can't wait." She looked between us, her gaze fierce despite her weakness. "Life is too short. Look at me. Thought I had forever." She paused, breathing heavily. "You two, fighting all the time, breaks my heart." Rachel sobbed quietly. I'd never seen my sister cry like this without caring who saw. "I'm sorry, Mom," Rachel whispered. "I'm so sorry." "Not about sorry," Mom struggled with each word. "About love. You're sisters. Only have each other. Promise me. Promise you'll try." I looked at Rachel across Mom's bed. She looked back at me, and for a moment I saw the sister I'd known before ambition and competition had driven us apart. The sister who used to braid my hair, who taught me to ride a bike, who held me when Dad died. "We promise, Mom," I said. "Promise," Rachel echoed. Mom smiled, or tried to. "Good. Now, listen. Legal papers, in my desk, at home. Important you both know." "Mom, please just rest," Rachel begged. But Mom was already drifting off, the medication pulling her under. Dr. Martinez ushered us out gently. "She needs rest. The next few days will tell us more about her recovery prospects. I suggest you both go home, get some sleep. This is going to be a long process." In the hallway, Rachel and I stood awkwardly, the promise we just made hanging between us like a fragile bridge over a deep chasm. "I'll stay," Rachel said finally. "You should go home, change, get some rest." "I can stay. Stephanie." Rachel's voice was softer than I'd heard in years. "You look exhausted. I'll call you if anything changes, I promise." I wanted to argue, but exhaustion was catching up to me. "Okay, but call me, immediately, for anything. I will." I made it to my car before the tears really came. Great, gasping sobs that shook my whole body. Mom, the one constant in my life, the one person who loved me unconditionally, who believed in my choices even when the world and Rachel questioned them. My phone rang. Marcus. "Hey, Steph, just checking. Are you okay? You're usually here by now." I'd completely forgotten about work. "Marcus, I'm at the hospital. It's my mom. She had a stroke."
Silence. Then, "Oh my God. Steph, I'm so sorry. Don't even think about work. We've got it covered. Just take care of your mom and yourself. But the literacy program starts today and the field trip paperwork." "Stephanie," Marcus's voice was firm, "we'll handle it. You take all the time you need." When I got home, my apartment felt different somehow. The kids' drawings on my walls seemed to mock me with their cheerful innocence. I tried to sleep, but couldn't, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. Finally, I got up and did what Mom had asked. I drove to her house in Laurelhurst, let myself in with my key, and went to her study, a small room she'd converted from a bedroom, her sanctuary where she paid bills and read medical journals. The desk was organized, everything in its place. Mom was meticulous about paperwork. In the top drawer, I found a manila folder labeled "Important" for Rachel and Stephanie. Inside were several documents: a will, updated just 6 months ago, insurance papers, and a letter, in Mom's handwriting, addressed to both of us. My hands shook as I pulled out my phone and called Rachel. "Any changes?" I asked immediately. "She's stable, sleeping. They're pleased with her vitals." Rachel paused. "Did you go to the house?" "Yeah. I found the folder she mentioned. Rachel, there's a letter. What does it say?" "I haven't read it yet. I thought maybe we should read it together." Silence stretched between us. Then, "I can't leave right now. Can you read it to me?" I sat down in Mom's desk chair, the leather creaking familiarly. "Okay,
I opened the envelope carefully, unfolding the pages covered in Mom's neat script. "My dearest daughters," I began, my voice wavering. "If you're reading this, something has happened to me. First, know that I love you both more than life itself. You are my greatest accomplishments, my proudest achievements." I had to pause, wiping tears from my eyes. "Rachel, my ambitious firstborn, you've built an empire I could never have imagined. Your strength, your drive, your brilliance, they amaze me every day. But my darling, success isn't measured only in dollars and deals. The richest life is one filled with love and connection." I heard Rachel crying on the other end of the line. "Stephanie, my tender-hearted baby, you've built something just as impressive, a life of purpose and meaning. You've chosen to make the world better, one child at a time. But my sweet girl, don't let fear of Rachel's judgment keep you from dreaming bigger for yourself too." I had to stop again, the words hitting too close to home. You are both right and you are both wrong. Success has many faces. Wealth without purpose is empty. Purpose without security is precarious. You need each other. Rachel's practicality and Stephanie's heart. Together, you could move mountains. The next part made my blood run cold. I've been diagnosed with a condition. The doctors say I have maybe 2 years, perhaps less. I've known for 6 months. I didn't tell you because I wanted you to treat me normally, not as a dying woman. But the stroke, if it's happened, means time is running out faster than expected. "Oh God," Rachel whispered on the phone. She knew and didn't tell us." "My will divides everything equally between you," I continued reading, my voice shaking. "But there's something more important than money or property. There's a safety deposit box at First National Bank, box 847. You'll need both keys, one in my jewelry box, one in the sugar canister in the kitchen. What's inside is my real legacy to you both." The letter went on with specific instructions about her care wishes, funeral arrangements if needed, and finally, "Please, my darlings, let this bring you together, not drive you apart. Promise me you'll be sisters again. That's all I've ever really wanted. All I love, forever and always, Mom." I finished reading, and for a long moment, neither Rachel nor I spoke. We just breathed together through the phone line, processing this new reality. Mom was dying, had been dying for 6 months, while we'd been too busy with our own lives to notice. "The safety deposit box," Rachel finally said. "We need to check it." "Not now," I said firmly. "Right now, we need to focus on Mom getting better. Whatever's in that box can wait tomorrow, next week, whenever. But we might not have much time left with her." Another pause. Then Rachel's voice came softer. "You're right. I'm sorry. I can't believe she didn't tell us. She was protecting us. That's what Mom does." "Did," Rachel corrected sadly. "Past tense, because now we have to protect her." It was the most honest, vulnerable conversation we'd had in years, and it had taken our mother's near-death experience to get us there. "I'm coming back to the hospital," I said, standing up, "whether you like it or not." "I'd like it," Rachel said quietly. "I'd like it very much." As I drove back through Portland's streets, rain starting to fall again, I realized everything had changed in the span of a few hours. Mom was sick, dying. Rachel and I had to somehow bridge a decade of distance and resentment. And somewhere in a bank vault sat a mystery that Mom believed was more important than all her worldly possessions. The wake-up call had come. The question was, were Rachel and I ready to answer it?
The ICU waiting room became our second home over the next 72 hours. Rachel and I took turns sitting with Mom, who drifted in and out of consciousness, her speech improving marginally, but her left side still paralyzed. The doctors spoke in careful, measured tones about wait and see and cautious optimism. Medical speak for, we have no idea what's going to happen. On the third night, Rachel showed up with 2 grande lattes from Starbucks and a bag of croissants. She handed me one of each without a word, settling into the uncomfortable plastic chair beside me. We sat in silence for a while, watching the muted TV flicker with late-night infomercials. "I canceled the Yamamoto deal," Rachel said suddenly. I turned to her, shocked. The Yamamoto deal had been all she'd talked about for months, a multi-million-dollar investment opportunity with a Japanese tech firm, her ticket to partner, she'd called it.
Rachel, you can't. I did. She took a sip of her latte, not looking at me. Told them I had a family emergency. They weren't happy, but she shrugged. Mom's more important. It was such a small thing, really. But coming from Rachel, who'd once left Mom's birthday dinner early for a conference call, it felt monumental. Thank you, I said quietly. She nodded, still not meeting my eyes. I read Mom's medical charts, the ones the nurses leave in her room. And? The prognosis isn't good, Steph. Even if she recovers from the stroke, the underlying condition... Rachel's voice broke. 6 months to 2 years, they're estimating. And that's if the stroke didn't accelerate everything. I'd been trying not to think about it, focusing instead on Mom's small improvements, a clearer word here, a slight movement there. But Rachel was forcing me to face reality. We should open the safety deposit box, Rachel continued. Whatever Mom wanted us to find, she wanted us to find it now, while she can still explain things. I wanted to argue, to maintain my position that the box could wait. But Rachel was right. If Mom had hidden something important, something that required both our keys, we needed to know what it was. Tomorrow, I agreed, after the doctor's morning rounds. Rachel looked at me then, really looked at me, and I saw fear in her eyes. Not the controlled, professional Rachel I knew, but my big sister who'd crawled into my bed during thunderstorms when we were kids. I'm scared, Steph, she whispered. Me too. She reached over and took my hand, and we sat like that until the nurses changed shifts at midnight. The next morning, after confirming Mom was stable and resting comfortably, we drove separately to First National Bank downtown. I'd retrieved the key from the sugar canister. Typical Mom, hiding something valuable in such an ordinary place. Rachel had Mom's jewelry box key on her keychain, apparently something Mom had given her months ago for safekeeping. The bank manager, a stern-looking woman named Mrs. Fletcher, led us to the vault after checking our IDs and Mom's authorization papers 3 times. The safety deposit boxes lined the walls like secrets in metal containers. Box 847 was smaller than I had expected. It took both our keys, turned simultaneously, to open it. Inside was a single envelope, thick and official-looking, and a small velvet pouch. Rachel reached for the envelope while I picked up the pouch. Inside were 2 identical necklaces, delicate gold chains with small pendants shaped like half hearts. When I held them together, they formed a complete heart with an inscription, "Together Forever." We had these when we were kids. Mom gave them to us. Rachel nodded, her fingers tracing the pendant in my palm. I lost mine in middle school, cried for days. Mom said she'd get us new ones, but she couldn't afford it. I looked at the necklaces, obviously new, obviously expensive. She remembered. She always remembered everything, Rachel said softly. Then she opened the envelope. Her face went pale as she read the first page. What is it? I leaned over to look. It was a bank statement, an account in both our names established by Mom 3 months ago. The balance made me dizzy. $847,000. How? I couldn't form a complete sentence. Where did she get this kind of money? Rachel was frantically reading through the other documents. Settlement, she breathed. Medical malpractice settlement from Dad's death. She sued the hospital 5 years ago, quietly, apparently, and won. There were more papers. Investment records showing Mom had carefully grown the money, a letter from a financial advisor thanking her for her business, and another letter, this one in Mom's handwriting, dated 2 weeks ago. Rachel read it out loud, her voice shaking. My darling girls, if you're reading this, you've found my secret. I never told you about the settlement because I didn't want you to think your father's death was a transaction, a number on a page. But I also couldn't let his death mean nothing. So I fought, I won, and I invested carefully, thinking of your futures. Rachel, my ambitious one, I know you don't need money. You've built your own fortune. But Stephanie, my gentle soul, You've sacrificed financial security for your principles. You work yourself to exhaustion for children who aren't yours in a job that barely pays your rent. I'm so proud of you, but I also worry. This money is for both of you, split equally, but it comes with conditions. Rachel, you must use your half to do something that helps others, not just enrich yourself. Start a foundation, fund a scholarship, find a way to give back. Stephanie, you must use your half to secure your own future first. Retirement, a home, stability, before you give it all away to others.
You're both so different, yet you both need what this money represents: balance. Rachel needs to learn that wealth without purpose is hollow. Stephanie needs to learn that you can't pour from an empty cup. But here's the most important part. You can only access the money together. The account requires both signatures for any withdrawal. You'll have to cooperate, compromise, communicate. You'll have to be sisters again. I'm forcing you to work together because I love you. Because I'm running out of time to fix what I broke by not stepping in sooner when you grew apart. Because my greatest fear isn't dying. It's leaving you both alone in the world without each other. All my love, Mom. The silence in that vault was deafening. Rachel carefully folded the letter, her hands trembling. I stared at the bank statement, my mind refusing to process the numbers. $847,000, I finally said. That's not just our addresses, 8427, box 847. Our childhood apartment number, Rachel confirmed. Where we grew up, where Dad lived. I felt sick. This money, this enormous sum, represented my father's death, the hospital's negligence that left Mom a widow and us fatherless. Blood money, guilt money, however you wanted to label it. I don't want it, I said suddenly. Rachel, I can't. This is Dad's life, reduced to a number. It's not blood money, Steph. Rachel's voice was firm. It's justice. It's the hospital taking responsibility for their mistake. And Mom turned it into something more. She turned it into our future. But the conditions! She's trying to change us, control us. She's trying to save us from ourselves, from each other. She looked at me, and I saw tears streaming down her face again. Don't you see? She's dying, and she's using her last bit of time to force us back together, because she knows we need each other. I wanted to run, to leave the bank, the money, the impossible situation, to go back to my simple life where my biggest problem was a broken refrigerator, not a fortune that required me to reconcile with a sister I'd spent years resenting. I can't do this, I whispered. I can't pretend we're suddenly a team, that everything's fine. It's not fine. Rachel grabbed my shoulders, forcing me to look at her. Nothing's fine. Mom's dying, we've wasted years hating each other, and now we have one chance, to fix this before it's too late. You don't understand, I pulled away. You've never understood. You, with your perfect life, your perfect career, looking down at me. Looking down? Rachel laughed bitterly. Stephanie, I've been jealous of you for years. You have purpose, meaning, people who love you for who you are, not what you can do for them. I have money and an empty apartment and colleagues who'd stab me in the back for a promotion. We stared at each other, both breathing hard. Years of resentment and misunderstanding hanging between us like a physical barrier. I don't know how to do this, I admitted finally. I don't know how to be your sister anymore. Neither do I, Rachel said, but Mom's betting everything that we can figure it out. Mrs. Fletcher knocked on the vault door. Ladies,
Is everything all right? Rachel and I looked at each other. Was everything all right? Our mother was dying. We'd just discovered a fortune we never knew existed. We were being forced to work together despite years of conflict. Nothing was all right. But maybe, just maybe, it could be. We need time, Rachel called to Mrs. Fletcher. Can you give us a few more minutes? Of course. Rachel turned back to me, her expression softer. We don't have to decide everything right now. Let's just take it one step at a time. Starting with Mom, we focus on her, on being there for her. The money, the conditions, all of it. We'll figure it out. I nodded slowly. One step at a time. And Steph, for what it's worth, I never meant to make you feel less than. I didn't know how to talk to you anymore after you chose a different path. I was scared I'd lost my little sister to a world I didn't understand. I was scared too. Scared you'd stop seeing me as worthy of your time. We stood there in that cold vault, surrounded by other people's secrets, holding our own. Two sisters, broken and scared, trying to find their way back to each other while their mother's life slipped away. The half-heart necklaces glinted in the fluorescent light. Together forever, they promised. I just hoped it wasn't too late to make that promise come true.
Mom was awake when we returned to the hospital, her right hand fumbling with the bed controls, frustration evident in her eyes. A physical therapist stood beside her, gently guiding her through basic movements. Ladies, the therapist smiled at us, your mother's making excellent progress. She's already regained some mobility in her fingers. My girls, Mom managed, her speech still slurred but stronger. You went to the bank? Rachel and I exchanged glances. We'd agreed in the car not to stress Mom with details, but we also couldn't lie to her. We found everything, I said carefully, moving to her bedside. Mom, why didn't you tell us about the settlement? Mom's eyes filled with tears. Couldn't make his death about money. Your father, he was worth more than numbers. We know, Mom, Rachel said, taking her other hand. We understand. The physical therapist excused herself quietly, sensing a private moment. You're angry, Mom said, looking between us. I can see. Not angry, overwhelmed. Mom, that's a lot of money, and the conditions... Necessary. Mom squeezed my hand with surprising strength. You two, stubborn, like me, needed push to find each other again. But forcing us to work together, is it working? Mom interrupted, a slight smile on her face despite the drooping left side. Rachel and I looked at each other. In the past 24 hours, we'd cried together, admitted fears to each other, shared vulnerabilities we'd hidden for years. We were talking, really talking, for the first time in what felt like forever. Yeah, Mom, I admitted. It's working. Good. Mom closed her eyes briefly, exhausted. So tired, but happy. My girls together. She drifted off to sleep, and Rachel and I stood there, hands still clasped, watching her breathe. Dr. Martinez found us in the hallway an hour later. We're moving your mother to a regular room tomorrow. She's stable enough, and frankly, we need the ICU bed. But I want you both to understand the stroke was a warning. Her underlying condition combined with the damage from the stroke means we're looking at months, not years. How many months? Rachel demanded. 3 to 6, possibly. I'm sorry. I wish I had better news. After the doctor left, Rachel turned to me. We need a plan. For Mom's care, for the money, for everything. Now? I was exhausted, emotionally drained. Yes, now. We don't have the luxury of time, Steph. Every day counts.
I wanted to snap at her, tell her not everything could be scheduled and planned, but she was right. We were on a clock, and the alarm was going to go off whether we were ready or not. Okay, I agreed. Let's go somewhere we can talk properly. We ended up at a small diner near the hospital, the kind of place with cracked vinyl booths and coffee that tasted like it had been sitting since morning. Rachel wrinkled her nose at the menu, but ordered eggs and toast without complaint. First, Mom's care, Rachel said, pulling out her phone and opening a notes app. She's going to need round-the-clock help once she's released. Home health care, medical equipment, modifications to the house. I can take time off work, I offered. Marcus said, Steph, you can't put your life on hold for months. We'll hire professionals. Seeing my expression, she added quickly, that doesn't mean we won't be there. We'll both be there as much as possible, but Mom would kill us if we sacrificed our entire lives. She was right, and I hated it. Okay, I agreed. Second, the money. We need to meet with Mom's financial advisor, understand exactly what we're dealing with. And the conditions, I added. We need to figure out how to meet them. Rachel set down her phone, looking at me seriously. I've been thinking about that. The foundation. What if we combined our efforts, created something that addresses both our passions? What do you mean? Your work with at-risk youth, my business experience, we could create a foundation that provides financial literacy and entrepreneurship programs for underprivileged kids. Give them the tools to break the poverty cycle. I stared at her. You've thought this through.
I had a lot of time in the ICU waiting room. She smiled slightly. And before you ask, yes, it satisfies my condition. Helping others, using wealth for purpose. It could also help you reach more kids than you ever could at one community center. It was a good idea. A brilliant idea, actually. Combining Rachel's financial expertise with my understanding of at-risk youth, we could create something that really made a difference. But that doesn't address my condition, I pointed out, securing my own future first. Which is where the hard part comes in. Rachel took a deep breath. You need to accept that it's okay to take care of yourself, that helping yourself doesn't mean abandoning others. You sound like a therapist. I've been seeing one for 2 years, Rachel admitted, surprising me. Burnout, anxiety, the whole corporate executive package. She's been trying to get me to find meaning beyond work. Guess Mom was listening to the same advice. We sat in silence for a moment, sipping terrible coffee, processing everything. So here's what I propose. We take the money, split it as Mom wanted. You use your half to buy a small house, nothing fancy, but yours. Paid off, so no rent, no mortgage stress. Set up a retirement fund, create a safety net. Then whatever's left, you invest in yourself. Maybe go back to school for that master's degree you mentioned wanting once. That was years ago. I never told you. Mom did. She told me lots of things about you that I was too stubborn to really hear. Rachel's eyes glistened. Did you know she kept every newspaper article about the center? Every mention of your programs? She was so proud of you, Steph. My chest tightened. She told me about your promotions, your deals. She was proud of you, too. We both made her proud in different ways. Pause. And we both hurt her by not being close. Our food arrived, but neither of us was particularly hungry. We picked at our plates, the weight of responsibility settling over us like a heavy blanket. There's something else, I said finally. If we're really doing this, working together, creating this foundation, taking care of Mom, we need to address the elephant in the room. Which is, we don't actually like each other very much. Rachel laughed, but it was sad. No, we don't. We love each other because we're sisters, but that's gonna take work. So how do we fix it? Honestly, I don't know. Therapy probably, family counseling, actually talking instead of judging, learning who we are now, not who we were 10 years ago. Rachel met my eyes. But mostly, I think we need to forgive each other. For what? For growing apart, for letting pride and stubbornness keep us distant,
for all the words said and unsaid. She reached across the table, hand open. I'm sorry, Stephanie, for making you feel small, for judging your choices, for being a terrible sister. I took her hand. I'm sorry, too, for resenting your success, for being defensive, for shutting you out. It wasn't a magic moment where everything was fixed. The years of hurt didn't dissolve instantly, but it was a start. A real, genuine start. We should probably talk to a lawyer, too, I said, trying to lighten the mood slightly. Make sure we do everything legally with the foundation. Already have one in mind. Mom's estate lawyer, Douglas Morrison. He handled the settlement originally. Of course, Rachel had already thought of that. One step at a time, right? I reminded her of her earlier words. One step at a time, she agreed, starting with getting Mom home and comfortable. We finished our mediocre breakfast, made lists and plans, argued over details, and compromised on solutions. It was exhausting and frustrating, and occasionally we wanted to strangle each other, but we were doing it. We were being sisters, working together, honoring Mom's wish. As we left the diner, Rachel's phone buzzed. She checked it, and her face paled. What? I asked, alarmed. It's my boss. The Yamamoto deal, they're taking their business to our competitor because I canceled. The partners are not happy. Oh, Rachel. It's fine, she said, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. Mom's more important. The foundation work is more important. I'll deal with the fallout. But I could see what it cost her, this choice. The partnership she had worked for possibly slipping away, the career she had built her entire adult life around, suddenly secondary. Thank you, I said quietly, for choosing us over your career. She smiled, but it was strained. That's what sisters do, right? Make impossible choices for each other? As we walked back to the hospital, I realized that we were both sacrificing now. Rachel was risking her career, her partnership, everything she had worked for. I was being forced to accept help, to build personal security when every instinct told me to give everything away. Mom knew exactly what she was doing with those conditions. She wasn't just forcing us to work together, she was forcing us to grow, to become better versions of ourselves. The question was, could we actually pull it off? Could two sisters who'd barely spoken civilly in years really build something meaningful together? Could we transform pain and loss into purpose and hope? Standing outside the hospital, looking at the building where our mother lay dying, where our father had died years before, I made a decision. Let's do this, I said to Rachel. All of it. The foundation, taking care of Mom, fixing us. Let's actually try. Rachel nodded, determination replacing the worry on her face. Together? I confirmed. We walked into the hospital side by side, ready to face whatever came next. We were still broken, still scared, still figuring out how to be sisters again. But for the first time in years, we were walking in the same direction.
Getting Mom home turned into our first real test of cooperation. The hospital discharge planner had given us a list of requirements that seemed impossibly long. Wheelchair ramp, hospital bed, grab bars in the bathroom, medical equipment we couldn't even pronounce. Rachel attacked it like a business project, creating spreadsheets and timelines. I focused on the emotional side, researching which home health aides had the best reviews for compassionate care. We clashed immediately. We don't have time to interview 20 different agencies, Steph, Rachel said, scrolling through her laptop in Mom's hospital room. I've already vetted the top 3 based on qualifications and availability. But did you check if they actually care about their patients or just treat them like numbers? I shot back, brandishing my phone with patient testimonials. Mom watched us from her bed, a slight smile on her face despite her exhaustion. Still, my girls, she murmured, always fighting. We're not fighting, we said in unison, then looked at each other and laughed despite ourselves. Discussing, Rachel corrected. Vigorously, I added. We compromised. Rachel's efficiency with my empathy checks. Within 3 days, we'd hired compassionate care services, installed all necessary equipment, and transformed Mom's ground floor guest room into a proper medical suite.
The first night home was chaos. The night nurse called in sick, leaving Rachel and me scrambling to figure out medication schedules and transfer techniques we'd only half listened to during training. "No, you need to support her back more," I instructed as Rachel tried to help Mom from wheelchair to bed. "I am supporting her back. You're not giving me room to maneuver." "Girls," Mom said weakly, "please don't drop me." We didn't drop her, but it was a near thing. By the time we got her settled, all three of us were sweating and near tears. "That was terrifying," Rachel admitted, collapsing into the chair beside Mom's bed. "I agreed," I said, sitting on the floor, my legs shaking from adrenaline. Mom reached out with her good hand, touching both of us. "Team effort," she said, clearer than she'd spoken in days. "Getting better at it." She was right. Each day, we found a rhythm. Rachel handled the medical coordination and insurance paperwork, things that would have overwhelmed me. I managed the daily care schedule and kept Mom's spirits up with stories from the center. We learned to read each other's signals, to step in when one of us was overwhelmed, to actually ask for help. Our first real victory came 2 weeks after bringing Mom home. The foundation paperwork was complete, and we had our first official meeting with Douglas Morrison, the estate lawyer. His office was in one of Portland's historic buildings downtown, all dark wood and leather-bound books. Morrison himself was in his 60s with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "He spoke very highly of both of you," he said, settling behind his massive desk, "and he was very specific about what he wanted this foundation to achieve." "She talked to you about it?" I asked, surprised. "Several times over the past months. She knew exactly what she wanted, a way to bring you both together while creating something meaningful." He pulled out a folder. "She even suggested the name, the Johnson Sisters Foundation for Youth Empowerment." Rachel and I looked at each other. Mom had planned this down to the last detail. "She also left these," Morrison continued, sliding 2 envelopes across the desk, one addressed to each of us. My hands trembled as I opened mine. Mom's handwriting filled the page. "Stephanie, my tender heart, you've always given everything to others while forgetting to save something for yourself. This foundation will be your legacy, but don't let it consume you the way the center has. Your sister needs you healthy, whole, and secure. Let Rachel's strength support you while you teach her compassion. You're not abandoning your principles by accepting help. You're honoring them by ensuring you can keep helping for years to come. I believe in you. Love always, Mom." I looked up to see Rachel wiping her eyes, her letter clutched in her hand. "She really knew us, didn't she?" Rachel whispered. Morrison gave us a moment, then outlined the legal requirements for the foundation. Rachel took notes, asking sharp questions about tax implications and governance structure. I contributed ideas about program design and community outreach. Somehow, we weren't fighting. We were building something together. "There's one more thing," Morrison said as we prepared to leave. "Your mother wanted me to tell you about the trust structure she established. The money can only be accessed through joint authorization, but there's a clause. If you two can't work together within 6 months, everything goes to charity." "What?" Rachel stood up abruptly. "She didn't mention that in her letter." "She called it her nuclear option," Morrison explained calmly. "Her way of ensuring you actually tried, not just went through the motions." I felt sick. 6 months. Mom might not even have 6 months. "So we have to prove we can cooperate or we lose everything?" I asked. "Not quite. You have to actually build the foundation, launch at least one program, and demonstrate sustained collaboration. She wanted results, not just intentions." Rachel paced the office. "This is emotional blackmail." "This is Mom ensuring we don't give up," I countered, surprised to find myself defending the condition. "She knows us too well. Without consequences, we might fall back into old patterns." Rachel stopped pacing, looking at me. "You're okay with this?" "No, but I understand it." I stood to face her. "Mom's betting everything that we can pull this off. Are we going to prove her wrong?"
The challenge hung between us. Rachel's jaw set in that stubborn way I recognized from childhood. Absolutely not. If Mom thinks we can do this, we'll do it. Then let's make it happen. Morrison smiled. Linda said you two were more alike than you realized. Back at Mom's house, we found her awake, the day nurse reading to her from a mystery novel. How did the meeting go? Mom asked immediately. You didn't tell us about the 6-month deadline, Rachel said, trying to sound stern but failing. Mom's eyes twinkled with mischief. Would you have tried harder if you knew? Probably, I admitted. Well, then needed the pressure. She gestured us closer. Scared? Terrified, we said in unison again. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. Mom took our hands. You can do this. I know you can. The next challenge came from an unexpected direction. The board at Riverside Community Center called an emergency meeting. My leave of absence was affecting operations, and they needed decisions about my position. They want me back or want me to resign, I told Rachel that night after we'd gotten Mom settled for bed. I can't do both, run the center and build the foundation. What do you want to do? Rachel asked. I'd been thinking about it for days. The center had been my life for 4 years, but the foundation could help so many more kids. Still, leaving felt like abandoning family. I don't know, I admitted. The center needs me. Those kids will be okay, Rachel interrupted gently. You've built something strong there. But this foundation, we could create programs in 10 centers, 20 across the entire city. You'd be multiplying your impact, not abandoning it. When did you get so wise? I asked. Mom's letters. I've been reading mine every night. Rachel pulled out her phone, showing me a photo of her letter. She told me I needed to learn that true wealth is measured in lives changed, not dollars earned. That you'd teach me that if I let you. I showed her a photo of mine. She told me, you teach me that I can't change lives if I burn out trying. She really did know us, Rachel marveled. The decision crystallized. I would leave the center, recommend Marcus for my position, and pour everything into the foundation. It terrified me, this leap into the unknown. But Rachel was right. We could help so many more kids this way. Our first small victory came at the center's board meeting. I announced my resignation, recommended Marcus, and presented the foundation concept. The board was impressed enough to suggest a partnership. The foundation's first program could launch at their location. You did it, Marcus said afterward, hugging me tight. You're really doing this. We're doing this, I corrected. The foundation will need community partners like you. Walking to my car, I called Rachel. The center wants to be our first partner location. Her scream of excitement nearly deafened me. That's perfect. I've been working on grant applications, and we could have funding lined up before we even officially launch. We talked for an hour, ideas flowing, building on each other's thoughts. For the first time, it felt real. Not just possible, but probable. We were actually doing this. That night, we celebrated with Mom. Her speech was improving daily, and she insisted we share champagne, sparkling cider for her medication protocol. To the Johnson Sisters Foundation, Rachel toasted. To Mom, who forced us to remember we're sisters, I added. To my brilliant girls, who just needed a little push, Mom said, her voice only slightly slurred. We clinked glasses, and in that moment, surrounded by medical equipment and medication schedules, sitting in a room that smelled of antiseptic and flowers, we were happy, genuinely, unexpectedly happy. The struggles weren't over. We still argued about details, still had moments of frustration and misunderstanding, but we were learning to communicate, to compromise, to actually be a team. 2 days later, Rachel got devastating news from her firm. They'd passed her over for partner and put her on a performance improvement plan. Corporate speak for, we're easing you out. I found her crying in Mom's kitchen, something I'd never seen her do about work before. Everything I worked for, she sobbed. 15 years. Gone. I held my sister while she cried, this woman who'd always seemed invincible. You're not gone. You're just starting something better. What if the foundation fails? What if I gave up my career for nothing? Then we'll figure it out together, I promised. That's what sisters do. She pulled back, wiping her eyes.
When did you become the strong one? I learned from the best, I said, meaning both her and Mom. Later, watching Rachel brief Mom on the foundation progress, her enthusiasm overriding her earlier despair, I realized something. We weren't just building a foundation. We were rebuilding us. And maybe, just maybe, we were going to succeed at both.
3 months into our journey, everything fell apart on a Wednesday morning in February. I arrived at Mom's house to find the day nurse, Patricia, waiting for me at the door with a grave expression. "Your mother had another stroke during the night," she said quietly. "The ambulance just left. Your sister's already at the hospital." The drive to Providence, Portland felt like déjà vu, only worse. This time, I knew what we were facing. This time, the odds were even more stacked against us. I found Rachel in the ICU waiting room, her perfect composure shattered. Her suit was rumpled, mascara smudged, hair falling out of its usual sleek bun. She looked like she'd aged 10 years overnight. "It's bad, Steph," she said before I could even ask. "Really bad." Dr. Martinez confirmed our worst fears. The second stroke was massive, affecting Mom's brainstem. She was on life support, and the prognosis was grim. "I'm sorry," the doctor said, her professionalism cracking slightly. "Your mother's DNR is clear. No extraordinary measures. We're keeping her comfortable, but you should prepare yourselves. Hours, maybe a day or two at most." The world tilted. Hours. We had hours left with our mother, and we were only halfway through building what she'd asked us to create. Inside the ICU room, Mom looked impossibly small, tubes and wires connecting her to machines that breathed for her, monitored her, kept her tethered to life by the thinnest of threads. Her eyes were closed, her chest rising and falling mechanically. "Mom," Rachel whispered, taking her hand, "we're here." I moved to her other side, careful of the IVs, and stroked her hair like she used to do for us when we were sick. For hours we sat there, talking to her, telling her about the foundation progress, sharing memories, crying, laughing, grieving. The nurses gave us privacy. The machines beeped their steady rhythm, and time became meaningless. At some point, Rachel's phone started buzzing incessantly. She ignored it until I nodded at her to check. Her face went white as she read the screen. "Oh, God." "What?" "It's Trevor, my ex. He found out about the foundation, about the money. He's filing a lawsuit. Claims he's entitled to half because we were discussing marriage when Mom got sick." "Can he do that?" "He's the corporate attorney. He can definitely try." She scrolled through more messages. "And he's not alone. My firm is claiming I used company resources for foundation planning. They're threatening legal action unless I sign over my partnership buyout." I stared at her, trying to process. This is happening now, while Mom's dying? Apparently, vultures don't wait for convenient timing. Rachel's laugh was bitter. I should have seen this coming. Trevor always knew exactly how to hit where it hurts. My own phone chimed, an email from the city council. Our grant application for the foundation's pilot program had been denied due to incomplete documentation and unverified financial backing. "No!" I breathed, scanning the formal rejection. "Rachel, they denied our grant. 3 months of work, and they're saying our financial documents aren't valid because the trust requires both signatures, which makes it unstable funding." We looked at each other across Mom's bed, the weight of everything crashing down simultaneously. Legal battles, denied grants, and worst of all, Mom slipping away before seeing her dream realized. Rachel said, "We're going to lose everything. The foundation, the money, Mom's legacy, all of it." I wanted to argue, to find hope, but looking at the machines keeping our mother alive, at the devastating news piling up on our phones, I couldn't find the words. The next morning brought more bad news. Douglas Morrison called with an update that made my stomach drop. "There's a complication with the trust," he said grimly. "Trevor's lawsuit has frozen your mother's assets pending investigation into improper influence.
And your firm, Rachel, has filed a claim for restitution that includes the seed money you withdrew for foundation startup costs. Can they do that? I asked, putting him on speaker so Rachel could hear. They're certainly trying, and until it's resolved, you can't access any of the foundation accounts. The 6-month deadline is still ticking, but you have no funds to work with. After the call, Rachel and I sat in Mom's kitchen surrounded by foundation plans and legal documents that suddenly meant nothing. I'm sorry, Rachel said, her voice hollow. This is my fault. Trevor, the firm, I brought these problems to us. Stop, I said firmly. We're in this together, remember? Your problems are our problems now. But if I just... Rachel, I grabbed her hands, forcing her to look at me. Mom created this foundation to punish us when things went wrong. She created it to teach us to lean on each other when things got hard. So that's what we're going to do. She nodded, tears streaming down her face. I don't know how to fix this. Neither do I, but we'll figure it out. Back at the hospital, we found Mom's condition unchanged. The doctor said it could be any moment now, or she could linger for days. The uncertainty was its own special torture. I need to tell her, Rachel said suddenly, about everything falling apart. She deserves to know. Rachel, she's unconscious. She can still hear us. They say hearing is the last thing to go. Rachel leaned close to Mom. We messed up, Mom. The foundation, everything you wanted us to build, it's falling apart. Trevor's suing, the firm is attacking, the grants are denied. We're failing you. I watched my sister confess our failures to our dying mother, and something inside me shifted. No, I said firmly, we haven't failed yet. Rachel looked at me like I'd lost my mind. Steph, we have no money, no funding, legal battles on multiple fronts. So what? We started with nothing 3 months ago except a dream and Mom's faith in us. We can do it again. How? We can't even access the trust. We don't need the trust. An idea was forming, wild and possibly insane. We need community support. We need people who believe in the mission. We crowdfund. Crowdfund? She blinked. For a foundation? Why not? We tell our story, not the money part, but the mission. 2 sisters trying to honor their dying mother's wish to help at-risk youth. We don't need millions to start. We need enough for one program, one success, one proof of concept.
Rachel stared at me, then slowly, incredibly smiled. That could actually work. Of course it could work. I pulled out my phone. I've got connections at every nonprofit in Portland. You've got business contacts who love a good underdog story. We launch a campaign, bypass all the legal nonsense, and prove the foundation works regardless of the trust money. But the 6-month deadline. We tell Morrison to document our efforts, show that we're building something despite every obstacle. Mom's condition in the trust was that we work together and create something meaningful. We're doing that. For the first time in days, Rachel looked hopeful. We'd need a compelling story, strong social media presence, video content, which we can create. I know people at the local news stations from center events. You know how to craft a business pitch that sells. We need testimonials, proof of impact. Carlos, I said suddenly, and Mia, and all the other kids, their stories, their progress, that's our proof. We spent the next hour planning frantically, ideas flowing despite our exhaustion and grief. Or maybe because of it, we had nothing left to lose and everything to prove. What about Trevor and the firm? Rachel asked finally. Let them fight over money that's frozen. We'll build something real that they can't touch. I squeezed her hand. Besides, the best revenge is success, right? Rachel laughed, really laughed, for the first time in days. Mom would love this, us fighting back instead of giving up. As if on cue, one of Mom's monitors changed its tone. We rushed to her bedside, calling for the nurse. Dr. Martinez arrived quickly, checked the monitors, and gave us a look that made my heart sink. Her blood pressure's dropping. It won't be long now. Rachel and I flanked Mom's bed, each holding a hand, as machines began their final countdown. But instead of despair, I felt something else. Determination. We're going to do it, Mom. Not the way you planned, but we're going to make you proud. The foundation will happen. We'll help those kids. And Rachel and I, we're really sisters again. You did that. You fixed us. Thank you.
Rachel added, her voice breaking. For everything. For never giving up on us. For pushing us together even when we fought it. For being the best mom anyone could ask for. The machine's tones shifted, their rhythm slowing. Dr. Martinez placed a gentle hand on my shoulder. It's time, she said softly. Rachel and I leaned close, our faces near Mom's, our tears falling onto her still features. We love you, we said together. And then so quietly it was almost peaceful, Linda Johnson took her last breath. The machines flatlined, their steady beeps becoming one long, mournful tone. Dr. Martinez moved to silence them, leaving us in sudden, devastating quiet. Mom was gone. Our champion, our mediator, our mother, gone. Rachel and I clung to each other over her still body, sobbing, grieving, holding tight to the only family we had left. When we finally pulled back, when the nurses had given us all the time they could, when we had to leave that room and our mother behind, Rachel turned to me with red, swollen eyes. "What do we do now?" she asked, lost and broken. I took her hand, squeezing tight. We do what Mom taught us. We keep fighting, together. Outside the hospital, the world continued its normal rhythm, oblivious to our loss. The sun was setting over Portland, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink that Mom would have loved. We stood in the parking lot, two sisters who'd lost everything and found each other, facing an uncertain future with frozen assets, legal battles, and an impossible dream to fulfill. "The crowdfunding campaign," Rachel said, wiping her eyes. "We launch it tomorrow. At Mom's funeral, we tell everyone what we're building." "That's incredibly tasteless." "Probably," Rachel smiled sadly, "but Mom would have loved it. Using her own funeral to launch her legacy?" She was right. Mom would absolutely loved it. "Okay," I agreed. "Tomorrow, we fight back. Tonight, we grieve." Rachel nodded, and we stood there as darkness fell, two sisters, against the world, battered but not broken. The setback was massive. We'd lost our mother, our funding, and seemingly any chance of success. But we hadn't lost each other, and somehow that felt like enough to keep going.
Mom's funeral was held on a gray Portland morning that threatened rain but never delivered. The church was packed. Nurses from the hospital, families from the community center, neighbors, friends accumulated over a lifetime of kindness. Rachel and I stood at the front, presenting a united front in our matching black dresses and the half-heart necklaces Mom had left us. "Mom always said family was everything," I began the eulogy, my voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. But she also knew that sometimes family needs a push to remember what really matters. Rachel stepped forward. 3 months ago, our mother was diagnosed with a terminal illness. Instead of telling us, she created a plan, a foundation that would force her two stubborn daughters to work together to remember they were sisters, not strangers. We told the whole story, the inheritance with conditions, the safety deposit box, Mom's letters, our journey from resentment to reconciliation. The congregation listened, captivated. "The legal battles have frozen the money," I continued, "but they can't freeze Mom's vision. Today we're launching the Johnson Sisters Foundation, not with millions, but with a crowdfunding campaign that starts right here, right now." Rachel pulled out her phone, showing the campaign page we'd built the night before. Every dollar goes directly to creating programs that give at-risk youth the tools to break the poverty cycle: financial literacy, entrepreneurship training, mentorship, everything our mother believed every child deserved. Marcus stood from the congregation. "Linda Johnson changed my life when I was a kid in her neighborhood who needed a champion. I'm in for $500. One by one, people stood. The nurse who'd camped for Mom, parents from the community center, even some of Rachel's former colleagues who'd heard our story. By the time the service ended, we'd raised $47,000. At the reception afterward, Douglas Morrison pulled us aside, his usual professional demeanor cracked by a rare smile. "Your mother would be impossibly proud," he said. "And I have news. I've been reviewing the trust documents, and there's something Trevor and your firm's lawyers missed." "What?" Rachel asked, hope flickering in her eyes. "Your mother included a clause about good faith efforts in the face of extraordinary circumstances. The freeze on assets due to litigation counts as an extraordinary circumstance.
If you can demonstrate continued progress on the foundation despite the legal obstacles, the trust remains valid and the 6-month deadline is paused until the litigation resolves. But we need to prove progress, I said, understanding dawning. Which you're doing magnificently, Morrison gestured to the crowdfunding app on Rachel's phone. Launch your pilot program, document everything, show that you're building something real, money or no money. That night, exhausted but energized, Rachel and I sat in Mom's living room, now our shared planning headquarters, surrounded by laptops, legal pads, and cold pizza. We need a location for the pilot program, Rachel said, typing furiously. Riverside is willing, but they can't start for 2 months. What about the old recreation center on Morrison Street? It's been empty for a year. Maybe the city would let us use it temporarily? Rachel's eyes lit up. That's perfect. I'll call the city manager tomorrow. His kid was in your art program. He owes you a favor. Meanwhile, I'll reach out to the kids' families, see who wants to participate in the pilot. We worked until 2 a.m., building, planning, creating. It felt like we'd finally found our rhythm, Rachel's business acumen and my community connections weaving together seamlessly. The next week brought our first real victory. The city manager not only gave us the Morrison Street Center rent-free for 6 months, but also connected us with a local tech company looking for community partnership opportunities. They donated computers, software, and even volunteer instructors. This is actually happening, Rachel said, staring at the donation confirmation email. We're actually building this. The crowdfunding campaign exploded. Local media picked up the story. Sisters honor dying mother wish despite legal battles. The narrative was irresistible. 2 women from different worlds, united by loss and purpose, fighting against corporate greed and legal manipulation to help children. Donations poured in. $5, $50, sometimes thousands. Each one came with messages of support, stories of similar family struggles, hopes that we would succeed. Within 3 weeks, we'd raised $200,000. We can launch a full program, I said, overwhelmed by the spreadsheet Rachel had created. 6 months of operations, stipends for instructors, materials, everything. And we'll have proof of concept for the trust litigation, Rachel added. Morrison says the judge will rule within 2 months. The pilot program launched on a Tuesday in March. 20 kids, ages 12 to 17, walked into the Morrison Street Center for the first session. Carlos was there, now 8 and beaming with pride at being Miss Stephanie's special helper. Mia had convinced her older brother to join. I taught the morning session on goal setting and self-advocacy. Rachel, who'd sworn she was terrible with kids, led the afternoon session on basic financial literacy. Watching her explain compound interest using candy as visual aids, seeing the kids' faces light up with understanding, I barely recognized my corporate-focused sister. You're a natural, I told her afterward. She laughed, genuine joy in her eyes. Who knew? Maybe Mom was right. I just needed the right purpose. The real breakthrough came 6 weeks into the program. One of our students, a 15-year-old named DeMarco, created a business plan for a neighborhood grocery delivery service targeting elderly residents. His presentation to potential investors, arranged by Rachel using her network, was polished, professional, and passionate. This kid is going places, one investor said, writing a check not just for DeMarco's business, but for the foundation itself. Whatever you're doing here, keep doing it. DeMarco's success became our proof of concept. The local news ran a feature story. The crowdfunding campaign surged past $500,000. And most importantly, we had undeniable evidence that the foundation worked. Then came the day we'd been waiting for, the court hearing. Douglas Morrison had assured us the case was strong. Trevor's lawsuit was clearly opportunistic, and the firm's claims were shaky at best. But sitting in that courtroom, watching Trevor and his lawyers present their case, fear gnawed at my stomach. Rachel sat beside me, her hand gripping mine so tight my fingers went numb. We watched as Trevor painted a picture of manipulation, claimed Rachel had promised him half of any inheritance, insisted the foundation was just a tax dodge. When it was our turn, Morrison was devastating. He presented the crowdfunding success, testimonials from students and families, news coverage, financial records showing every penny was going to the mission. He showed Mom's letters, her medical records, her timeline of creating the trust before Rachel had even met Trevor. But the turning point came when Morrison called Rachel to the stand. Ms. Johnson, he began formally, can you explain why you canceled the Yamamoto deal worth millions in commissions to care for your mother? Because she was more important than money, she said simply. Because I'd wasted years putting career before family, and I wasn't going to make that mistake when it mattered most. And the foundation? What has it cost you personally? Everything, Rachel's voice broke slightly. My partnership, my career track, my relationship with Trevor, though that turned out to be a blessing. But it's also given me everything, my sister back, a purpose that matters, a legacy that would make my mother proud. Trevor's lawyer stood. Very touching, Miss Johnson, But isn't it true you stood to gain over $400,000 from this arrangement?
Stood to gain? Rachel laughed bitterly. I walked away from a partnership worth $5 million over 10 years. I did this because it was right, not because it was profitable. The judge, a stern woman in her 60s, leaned forward. Mr. Morrison, I've reviewed all the evidence. This court finds no merit in Mr. Peterson's claims. The timing alone, filing the moment Miss Johnson's mother entered her final illness, demonstrates opportunistic intent rather than legitimate grievance. Case dismissed. The gavel fell, and I couldn't breathe. We'd won! Actually won! Outside the courthouse, Rachel grabbed me in a fierce hug. We did it! Oh my God, we actually did it! The trust? I asked Morrison. Released from freeze within 24 hours. The firm's claims will likely be dropped. They know they can't win now. He smiled. Ladies, you're about to have access to your full inheritance. 1 week later, Rachel and I sat in Morrison's office again, this time for a very different meeting. The full trust was now available, $847,000 plus interest and investment gains, nearly $1 million. So, Morrison said, what's your plan? Rachel and I looked at each other and smiled. We split it as Mom intended, but not quite the way she expected. I pulled out our proposal. We each take $100,000 for personal security, house down payment for me, nest egg for Rachel while she transitions careers. The rest goes to the foundation. $750,000 for the foundation? Morrison raised his eyebrows. We've proven we can build something with community support, but this money, Dad's settlement, Mom's sacrifice, it should create lasting change. Endowment fund, multiple locations, scholarship programs. Plus, I added, we've both learned we don't need millions to be happy. We need purpose, family, and enough security to keep serving that purpose. Morrison reviewed the proposal, nodding slowly. Your mother specified conditions, which we've exceeded, Rachel interrupted. I've created a foundation that helps others. Stephanie has secured her future while expanding her impact. And we're actually sisters again, better sisters than we've ever been. Then I see no reason why this wouldn't satisfy the trust requirements. Morrison smiled. Congratulations, ladies. You've officially exceeded your mother's wildest dreams. 6 months after Mom's death, we stood in the Morrison Center, now permanently the Johnson Sisters Foundation Youth Empowerment Center, for the grand opening. The mayor was there, local business leaders, families, students, and media. But the moment that mattered most was when Rachel and I cut the ribbon together, our half-heart necklaces catching the light, forming a complete heart when we stood side by side. Mom forced us back together, I said to the crowd. She gave us impossible conditions, an unrealistic timeline, and obstacles we thought we couldn't overcome. But she knew something we didn't. That together we were stronger than we ever were apart. Rachel continued, this foundation isn't just about helping kids, though that's its mission. It's about proving that family, purpose, and determination can overcome any obstacle, that love, even tough love, can transform everything. We unveiled Mom's portrait, commissioned from the art teacher at the center, painted by our students. Linda Johnson, smiling in her nurse's scrubs, surrounded by children's handprints in rainbow colors. Below it, a plaque. Linda Johnson believed every child deserved a champion. She also believed her daughters deserved each other. This foundation is proof she was right about both. The crowd applauded, cameras flashed, and Rachel's hand found mine. We did it, she whispered. No, I corrected. We're doing it. This is just the beginning. 6 months later, I stood in my new house. Nothing fancy, just a small bungalow in a good neighborhood, helping Rachel hang artwork in what would be her room. She'd moved in temporarily while looking for her own place, but we both knew temporary might become permanent. Living together felt right, like returning to something we'd lost and didn't know we'd missed. The foundation was thriving. 3 centers now, with plans for 2 more. DeMarco's business had launched successfully, inspiring other students to dream bigger. Carlos wanted to be a social worker, just like Miss Stephanie. Mia was already planning her financial empire, with Rachel as her personal mentor. Trevor's lawsuit had been dismissed with prejudice. Rachel's firm had quietly settled, writing a check to the foundation as part of their community outreach program. Corporate speak for, please don't sue us for harassment. How's the new job? I asked Rachel as she positioned a frame. She'd been hired as Director of Community Investment for a local tech company, using her business skills to build partnerships between corporations and nonprofits. Better pay than the foundation could offer, better hours than her old firm, and infinitely more fulfilling. Perfect, she said. I'm literally getting paid to connect businesses with causes like ours. It's like Mom designed my dream job before I knew it existed. My phone chimed, a text from Marcus. Board meeting next week. You better have good news about the expansion proposal. Smiley face. I joined Riverside's board of directors while running the foundation. My master's degree, paid for with my inheritance money, was halfway complete. Life was full, purposeful, and finally felt like mine. You know what I realized? Rachel said, stepping back to admire our work. Mom didn't just give us money or a foundation. She gave us a second chance at family. Yeah, I agreed. The real inheritance isn't money. It's love, purpose, and someone who believes in you enough to push you toward your potential. We stood in my little house, sisters again, looking at photos of us as kids, with Mom, with our students, with our new life together. The lawyer had called us to that office expecting a family fight. Instead, we'd built a family legacy. Mom's will had divided her assets equally, but her real gift, forcing two strangers who happened to be sisters to become sisters who happened to build something beautiful, that was priceless. To Mom, Rachel raised an imaginary glass. To Mom, I echoed, who knew exactly what we needed. Each other! Each other! Outside, the Portland rain finally came, gentle and cleansing. Inside, we were home, not just in a house, but in a relationship we'd thought we'd lost forever. The inheritance wasn't the money. It was this: sisterhood, purpose, love, and a future we'd build together. One child, one program, one day at a time. Mom demanded we work together, and in the end, we discovered we didn't want to work any other way. The Johnson Sisters Foundation was her legacy, but we, Rachel and Stephanie, finally and completely sisters again, we were her greatest achievement. And somewhere I knew she was smiling, proud of her girls who had learned that the real treasure was never in the bank account. It was in each other all along.
Up next, you've got two more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.